Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cutting the tree.
Right, we're all good now.
That's how they're making some bad back pockets.
That'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can start it.
Because they're hauling dirt, and gravel, and everything all back there. They're
Have they done any foundation work or
all back now. They're back there.
just clear it?
No, they're good.
Oh,
I
they're
could
doing
hear
it.
myself on my phone when I.
Got a big roller back there that they're compacting everything. You can see it better from 231.
Bro.
It's just,
He's connected to audio now.
and,
All right,
APC called me back. Told me they
I'll
did
call the meeting to order. Let's start with a roll call.
Member Ian Pitlars,
Present.
Secretary David Tate is present. Member Brendan Betts is out with a COVID and high temperature. Wish him the best. Trustee Angel Valentin.
Present?
Chief Ed Ward is on vacation.
Yes.
Okay. Then let's kick off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of previous board minutes. The only thing was we were going to add one number. Did that get added? That was the only thing I didn't see a follow up on.
And just for clarification, I can't find the minutes on the board website.
Did I not upload them? I thought I did. I can double check that. If I
Okay.
missed it, I'll upload them.
But they look good to me.
Mr. Chair, that the members have approved the minutes. Were there any adjustments or addendums, anything? Okay. They'll
Prior
stand.
to, only note prior to what I thought was I uploaded it, but possibly I may have left it out. I made a change to them because under the new Indiana code regarding the new law regarding virtual participation in meetings.
All right, yes.
So I added it on there that Brendan was participating remotely, which we have to note
Yeah.
for the purpose of the minutes. So I added that, but nothing big.
With those amendments, I ask that those minutes be approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And would you check?
They're on.
Thank you.
They were on there.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
So when I look at it, it doesn't show up. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Well, first item was update from the fire department. I'm guessing we're skipping that today. Unless somebody
Unless-
wants to take the reins.
Deputy Chief Lewis, any particular update?
There's not a lot to update. They've started heavy on the construction of the new school. They just started this week and they've made tremendous progress on that. This is going very well.
Update from the office of the trustee, if there's anything that isn't related to new business that you wanted to talk about.
Well, I'll let the fire call go through. You good? All right, just wanted to make sure it wasn't for us. Which they can tell from the tones, but I cannot. So as far as the township, over the last few weeks, we still haven't received the confirmation regarding the final approval of the population growth appeal. I spoke with Miranda Busey today, and they haven't sent any out throughout the state, so we haven't received that one yet. They said that it would probably be a few more weeks, but in addition to that, we're working on some of the initial stuff. There's a budget worksheet that you submit by June 30th that begins the budget process, and that's on our end. That
I was gonna say, wouldn't we have to hear about that before fiscal year?
We'll hear about it. We don't need to have it for the June 30th thing. So when we do the budget worksheet, it's not the official one that we present, that the trustee presents to you. It's a DLGF has a process in place to help trustees build their budget if they need assistance or whatnot. And they just want to make sure that what the trustees are putting forward is halfway decent, if you will. And so I double check with Miranda, and we can go ahead and put a budget for the worksheet part, that it's not the approved one or anything like that, for us to start working on that includes money that we expect to receive after we do that. And so it shouldn't be an actual hiccup. So we should still have that in time for the actual approval of the budget here in the fall. And in addition to that, we started the process for looking at options for the construction of the upstairs, setting it up for firefighters that we hope to bring on in the next coming years. So we're really excited about that possibility. We just met this week. You remind me the name of the company? Cube, right? Cube. And so they work a lot with small projects like this, and so they'd be able to help us make sure that it's done the right way. And so we're looking at possible alternatives and trying to work with them to start thinking about how do we do this in a cost-effective manner, in a way that also has the foresight to think about how our department will be in the next coming years and decades. So we started doing that as well. We've had an uptick in township assistance. We've really been focused on township assistance over the last few weeks. There's been a lot of need here as the summer season gets in place. We see some of the assistance gets phased out around May, which is especially for heating assistance. And then we are still seeing folks impacted by, for example, Caterpillar has had like some layoffs as a result of issues with their supply chains. And so we've seen a lot of issues like that, and we're really working to do that. We're continuing to set meetings with folks in the community, churches, and different groups to try to be able to work with them to maximize how much we actually provide, and if they have assistance that they can provide as well, that allows us to help refer them to, and we don't have to cover all of the need necessarily. So we're trying to be proactive and responsible, but also kind to folks in need. So that's kind of what we're working on. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay, there's no old business. The first issue of new business is a proposed employee handbook. I would say we didn't get this in a timely manner, and it's 20 pages long.
I'm fine with tabling.
So
it.
I'd love to table it.
Yes.
Okay.
Because this is not like a time critical.
No,
thing.
It's not time.
You guys can use it informally in the meantime.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I could go back to old business.
Oh, please.
I know last time we talked, the last meeting, Shelby Township waiting on disbursement. Did that contract ever get submitted?
We have not yet received it from Bill, not yet.
Okay.
So we're still waiting on that.
And nothing new on the state or anything about the barrier and repair on Burton Cemetery?
Not yet.
Okay. Are we lighting a fire there? How do we do this?
We started by lighting a fire under there, but Chief Ward's dad used to work as well with some of the different. I believe it was through INDOT that he worked. So had good contacts with the county.
So I'll just put in progress.
In progress. Yeah.
Okay. What do you believe is the holdup on this? Because it's been several months, or is it just
state bureaucracy? State just takes a while to get back to us.
That's a sad commentary.
Call the IADAP and left a message for somebody to call me back a week and a half ago and have everything.
Yeah, that's not unlike what happens with the with in-person when we were doing the whole process and all that. We've been able to get everything to them. There were a couple of pages that they had issues with the seal being visible because it's a stamped seal, not it's not like an ink one. But we were able to get that fixed, and so we got all that stuff in on time and everything. So we should, as far as I'm aware, we're still good for a July 1st start date. They haven't said anything to the contrary, but it's a state. We're rolling forward. As far as I think it is good, and you guys can take some time for the employee manual to view it over, and we can look at it in the July meeting. It really covers a lot of. It's based on the West Lafayette employee handbook or manual, and so it covers a lot of stuff. Some of them, it's still areas that the township might not necessarily need at the moment, but there's always a possibility that in the future it will. And so we're wanting to make sure that we had a thorough handbook that could be used for all of these possible eventualities. And my understanding is, and I'll ask Drew. He has a little bit more experience there, just to give you guys some context. In the resolution that I drafted, I included a point of, that said that some pieces of the handbook would be superseded by operating guidelines for the department, so the SOGs. Those would include things like, for example, paid time off and different pieces, because their time accrues a little different.
And is that in the current draft of the handbook? That
it's not in the draft of the handbook, but it's in the draft of the SOGs. That's the SOPs that are being developed.
It is in the draft of the
the standard operating procedures for the department.
okay. And
Slash SOGs.
Slash SOGs. Yes, I don't know which of the two to call it. My understanding is that the name changed a few years back.
Procedures are cut in stone, guidelines are.
I see.
Right.
I see.
so does
Should we?
does
just
the
edit?
employee handbook refer then to what you're, we know what we're looking at? Does it refer to?
I haven't said it to refer to it yet. I basically said that if, like, what the city does as well is that if there is something that supersedes it, it's on the
Okay,
and the department ones. And so
okay,
I want to double check with Chief Ward, but I know that some of those things I'd like to get approved formally by the board. Some of them are outside of what the board would need to view necessarily, but some of it, like employment related stuff and paid time off, I'll make sure that at a future date, we get
Okay.
Chief Ward to bring it in officially and
Okay.
be able to cover that, so that we have those two. And I can actually, we should be able to bring that in July so that you can see them both simultaneously too. So
so are we tabling the resolution 18?
That's
I
what I
think
would like
that's
to do,
what-
yes.
Good, okay.
Motion to table resolution 2022-18 till the next meeting.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Firefighting salary framework for the 2023 budget is next up. I don't know if you want to present something or if you want to present something. Talk through this.
I can pull it up here. I can join in a second and present it from here. And I can show you guys what it looks like, if that's okay.
Yes.
And you can send that to me?
Yes. Well, it was already sent to you.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, okay.
We did this a few weeks ago.
And I made sure to resend it today as well.
Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Sorry. All right, and so let me share screen. Window. So I'm sharing here the screen, and so you'll be able to see some of the pieces here. I'll walk you guys through some of the pieces that we're working on. I'll go first. This is based on the last year's budget, so it hasn't taken into account inflation. This is like if we were doing it for 2022, right? So these numbers will shift necessarily as we go into 2023. We wanted to build a budget, and we're starting to do the process, right? And so, as you guys know, part of the issue that we've had is that we've really been looking at a budget that developed not for a growth in mind. So we've started to add some spaces where we know that we all have to make some changes to the line items and stuff like that. I added one here, so. And so the biggest piece of this obviously will have to be the salaries. And we're also looking to incorporate longevity pay, which is added here. Right now, we don't have a significant amount of longevity pay, but I'll walk us through that in a second. So pay scales, to start there. So this is based on some other departments. Chief Ward and I worked to put this together. So some of these, the positions in yellow are positions that are not directly in what we had originally intended to do, but I know Chief Ward particularly likes the engineer position as a position between a first-class firefighter and an officer. which is like more specialized, more knowledgeable. So that one is there, and then the other three are other things that West Lafayette does, but for the moment is not things that we envision to add to the roster at this time or anything. So Chief, what we decided to do was, and I start with Chief here, we wanted to put it in numbers as a percentage of first class pay, so that you know based on your rank how much you're going to be receiving based on a percentage of first class pay. So for first class firefighter, it would be $45,760 in 2022 dollars. That's the amount that current firefighters Drew Hampton and Travis Merkel make. And then we would have a firefighter entry level would be about 95% of that first class salary. So it would be a little bit lower. That's basically a full-time firefighter, but sort of probationary status, but on the full-time side, not a probie on the volunteer side. Then we have an engineer, which as we said is a little bit more specialized, more knowledgeable. That would be set at about 105% of the firefighter first class. And then we have lieutenant at 110-ish, captain at 115, and then battalion chief at 100, just under 120, deputy chief at 125, and then chief at 141. And so the chief scale matches his current salary with longevity as well. So I made sure to incorporate that at the moment here. And so when you look at this next column, this is longevity. And so it basically for years 1 through 4, you don't get any money, and then it builds up and it starts, you know, adding basically at about 187.50 per year. And so I divvied it up so that it's about $3,000 for a person that's been here 20 years or more. And that's longevity pay. And so at the top end of it, it's only a 6.56% of the firefighter's first class. So even if you were a chief, if you've been here 20 years, right? So you still get the 3,000. It's not a percentage of the chief's pay. It's a percentage of the firefighter first class pay. So that's consistent regardless of position.
I only saw $2,000 allocated to that on the other screen. I assume that is not a realistic number for our current staff.
Oh, it is. So right now we have Joe is at 9 years. He would kick into 10 years officially, technically in 2024, because it's based on your January 1 date. And so in January 1st, he would still be at 9 years and a bit, closer to 10, but 9 and a bit. And then Chief Ward at the moment, I believe he's at 6 years. And so it would be, you know, just under $2,000 for longevity pay, because Drew and Travis joined in 2019, so they still have a few years before that kicks in. So, 2019, did I get that right? And then so that's what these numbers are built off of. And so when I came in here to build the salary estimates, I know there is a jumble of numbers. I'll go through them pretty quickly. For all of the different scenarios that I outlined in that first page, we have a fire chief. In the scenarios where we have 6, and it's mislabeled here, it says battalion commander. But at this moment, Joe Wade was promoted to deputy chief, but he doesn't have the pay scale to it attached to it right now. But he was promoted to deputy chief. He's still getting paid at the rate that was approved by the last salary resolution, because this is still a concept that we hope to incorporate for next year. So then at those positions, it would be having a deputy chief, no battalion chief. And then the maximum number of positions would be 3 captains or at each of these locations on the 9 and full department numbers as the estimate that I'm drawing up here. And so that would be basically 1 officer per shift in addition to the deputy that would be, you know, there during the day. So it would be 1 officer at the moment. And then we would have either 3 or 6 engineers maximum at the top level. And then we would still have 3 firefighters first class in these scenarios. That's obviously meaning sometimes this is like the maximum funding level that I'm proposing, or that I probably will propose when we come to officially drawing up the budget. That doesn't mean that's always how it might be. We might have an individual who's a lieutenant that doesn't, or it's not yet a captain, but its maximum allocation of officers would be 3 at this moment in this proposal that I'm outlining. And then we have engineers, that's the highest number of engineers. And then obviously some folks would start at entry-level firefighters. So at first they wouldn't be receiving first-class pay, they would be entry-level firefighters. But this gives us an upper limit of what these scenarios look like, at least at the moment. Obviously they can be modified, but and so when we go back over here, we've obviously done most of the work. As you see here, the chief's salary would go down, but it would also be accounted by longevity pay in theory. So his salary would go down a bit, but it's actually matched by longevity to match that current number, or within like $30. Yeah. And then we have the firefighter salaries in each of these different scenarios, which is like a firefighter, a battalion, or deputy chief and a chief. 9 firefighters, a battalion, or a deputy chief and a chief, and then 12 and respectively, same thing. What I'm proposing we add, or one of the things that I'll probably propose when we go through the budget season, will be the full-time township clerk fire piece. So that would be essentially we would be divvying up the salary of a township clerk, or which is Amy's role at the moment, between an individual, between time in the township and budget in the township and budget in the fire side, because she'll be performing duties in both departments. And so her salary would be paid partially from both sides.
So the question, is she doing that now?
At the moment, she's only getting paid out of the township side.
I mean, as her job duties, is she actually doing that now?
She's doing she's not doing all of the duties that we would expect when we grow the number of paid firefighters, but she's doing some of the duties that we would
And
expect.
she's not being compensated for that the way it's structured right now.
Yeah, she's being compensated explicitly from the township side. So our hope is that when we draw this budget up for 2023, it's drawn up the way.
Will the salary be more, or will the duties will it be split with her duties?
So the salary would be more because she would be working full-time officially. So she would be
So
here.
she's only part-time right now.
She's only part-time. So she's working 25 hours a week officially, although she hangs out more around the building, but.
Is this increase in part-time staff to do with that as well? Notice that takes a very significant part.
So that part of the increase is actually an upper limit so this is a number where I feel comfortable in drawing down, because it's basically saying that we'll need to replace more folks more often and bring in folks on a part-time basis. But if we have a fully staffed or 3 or 4 firefighters per shift, we actually expect to see a decrease in how often we need to have.
That's to pay somebody to come in, like we have somebody available.
Yeah,
Travis
so
has COVID.
it would be like Spiker's position right now, if he's part-time with the department.
So tell me what that is. I'm hearing a lot of words back and I don't know what her responsibilities will be coming over here and doing work here. So I'm just asking so that.
Oh, no,
somebody-
sorry. This was a separate piece. I'm sorry.
I'm crossing straight a little bit, sorry.
No, yeah. So we were, we had jumped on to part-time staff, so I apologize.
Paid staff, part-time for the fire department for when.
Yeah.
The paid guys are off.
Right.
So we could have somebody come in paid to take that time.
And that would be Amy's.
No.
That would be a firefighter.
Like Spiker or whatnot, yeah.
So I'm still back on the clerk position.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a lot of managing, salaries, payroll,
For the fire department.
for the fire department, grants, all of these different type of stuff.
We would split that percentage.
Yeah, so part of it would be paid from the township because there's township
We
responsibilities.
don't know what that percentage is.
I drew it up as 25 hours for the township, 15 hours for the fire department.
Okay.
So that's the way I drew it up.
What's she working at?
25.
And she amenable to this?
Yeah.
Okay. And this would start when? Fiscal year?
Fiscal year, so 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is she being compensated for what she's doing with these guys now?
Yeah, she's just taking on she has a few less responsibilities on the township side to make up
To
for that,
balance?
to balance that out.
So,
yeah. So like, for example, on a future level, the trustee might not need to be hands-on with every township assistance case, but to be able to
Okay.
do that at the moment, the trustee.
so I was gonna ask if she's deferring some things, so what those
Yes.
things, are they being done? Are they
Yes.
getting done?
Yeah, they're getting done, and so I'm getting them done, so.
Okay.
And so as we jumped on, we covered longevity pay. That's fairly straightforward. That number would grow if we had guys stay on for a very long time, but it gives you an idea of what that maximum is
Okay.
for that number. Part-time staff, as I said, I don't actually believe that we would need 47,520. I just went to an upper bound of how much money to allocate. So there's some wiggle room there. It was just a number that I put on that amount. So it was basically 5 times what we currently have allocated for part-time staff. So health insurance is currently being basically extrapolated from current insurance costs, which is good in some senses, not great in others, because it just depends on the type of families we get and what their type of insurance is. So that number will be a little bit variable, and it's not a perfect match. It just depends on the situation with whoever we bring onto the department. PERF is just over the amount that we would need to pay, because it's 19.6%, and I put this number at 20%. Because we would be paying 19.6% of the salaries of the chief and the firefighters. So separate from that, Social Security, you see a drop in Social Security. That's because as we go in and set up PERF, we wouldn't have to pay Social Security, Medicare for the current paid personnel. We would only have to pay it for the clerk, who wouldn't be a firefighter and is not on PERF and on firefighter PERF, and we would also have to pay it for the part-time staff because they wouldn't be on PERF. So we would have to pay for those. Well, they might be on PERF in other departments, but we are not paying into their PERF. So
Right, okay.
And then unemployment, which is just an extrapolation again of the numbers that we've been paying and that weve been seeing over the last few years. I'll make sure that as we get closer to budget season, I review them for accuracy to make sure that they're right. Work comp is a new line item too. Usually it's been put under insurance and other categories, and I wanted to put it out explicitly separately in a separate amount. And so it's an extrapolation at the current time of our budget of how much we've been having to pay for work comp. Then we go down to medical. And again, this was the number that we currently have in the budget. I expect that it will go higher. All repairs, I'd have to double check how that line item is performing this year, but that's the amount that we have allocated right now. Operating supplies, same thing. It's the number that we have right now. Obviously, for the purpose of next year's actual budget, it will be higher because inflation is hitting us hard. I think in this particular front, I think we're closer to 90% of the allocated line item has been expended. Other line items are lower, but that line item is a little bit higher because of the cost of inflation right now. Professional services, we're keeping it at the same amount. Utilities, we're going to have to raise it, obviously, but for the purpose of this 2022 scenario, which will then be updated for next year, we're keeping it at the same amount. Non-medical insurance, that's what we separated. So work comp used to be covered out of non-medical insurance. And so at this moment, I simply decreased the original number minus the work comp that we're expecting to see based on our calculations from our insurance office. And then we have fuel costs, which same thing. And I increased it already in that number, which is good because that's what's been happening in the real world right now.
Do you expect any of these to grow with staff growing?
Most of these are not staff dependent, or are not like directly correlated to staff. I expect operating supplies I don't expect it to be dramatically related to that, because that's a lot of stuff that has to do with like training and other like pieces, which I mean, it might have an increase, but it's not going to be a directly correlated increase. It's a smaller increase. Fuel, same thing, because the trucks go out for runs and a few errands, and that won't change. Allowances, At the moment, we're keeping it the same. We actually think under normal circumstances, in a normal year, which this one is not, because we still have to pay out some of the amount that Tyson didn't pay out last year to the volunteers. This allowance has historically more than covered the volunteers. Usually, if for numbers that I've collected and I've asked Ed as well, we would usually spend about 20-25 on the volunteers. But we are keeping it at that amount because we do get some clothing allowances to full-time staff as well for boots and shirts and clothing that's just a part of the process there. So that's where we usually pay that line item from. If closer to the budget season, you guys would like us to separate that line item to be more specific, that's something that we can do. And then that last one is something that appears in all the budget, on all the different funds, and it's always zero there. And then the bottom line numbers is that with 9 firefighters, we would be using about 82% of what we expect is our maximum, levy plus contracts and all that stuff. With 12 firefighters, a deputy chief and a chief, we get really close. So I think that for right now, on health speaking, although we need to get to 12 firefighters, a deputy chief and a chief in the long term, I think that as of right now with this number, we shouldn't go beyond 11 firefighters, a deputy chief and a chief, because that would give us some wiggle room to get to within 5-10% of the actual budget, of the actual maximum amount, so that we still have some room to play with. But
I want to leave you room because I don't believe that we're done seeing whatever.
Yeah,
is happening.
inflationary risk. Yeah. And as I've mentioned to the board, I think that the number that we are most likely to propose here, we want to still run through all of the different pieces, but we want to give you a rundown of what it looks like. The number that we'll probably ask for next year will be 9 firefighters, a deputy chief and a chief. So it'll be that second column, which still has about 17 to 20%, 15 to 20%.
And that would be based upon best hiring scenario and retainment for 2023-24.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is doable. You think of hiring that many?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we're working on. And so I just wanted to give you an idea. The top numbers there in the first few columns, first few rows are a quick, off the top number of what it could look like for the staffing of the different stations. And it's not set in stone because we have to determine based on number of runs and all these pieces, but depending on when we get more staff, then we can start to look at occasionally having a staff person over at the other station or whatnot on a more regular basis, rather than riding out there to pick up a truck in the case of an emergency. So we have some, we've just been kicking around some stuff, and that's just for us to get an idea roughly of what we could do or what we could see if we do that.
So I have 2 questions there, simply because I don't know. Where would you typically get some volunteers or some, would they come from other departments to fill in on their off days, or?
For part-time staff, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full-time, that means you're going to have to get somebody.
If we pay our volunteers like Andrew, he can't volunteer because it's a paid member. So, 18-hour volunteers, it's a dual-edged sword. If we hire firefighters on their off duty, then we don't have to worry about losing a volunteer because we're paying them.
Okay.
So that's where most of them will come from. And there are, I don't think we've got the word out to a lot of them yet, that once we get to the point where we want to set up a pool of people, I don't think there'll be any problems.
So this, I'm asking because I truly don't know. I haven't looked. I don't know where I would go to look at where your emergency runs, either fire or ambulance, go to are dispatched geographically. So with Station 2 over the hill and with the growth out here, are we looking at keeping that down there but staffing it, or are we talking about going away with that and having another station somewhere else other than here?
I don't know that we're talking, there's been no talk about doing away with it.
Okay.
Especially because, and Jim can tell you more about that. We're expecting actually a huge amount of growth around Newman Road.
Oh.
PRF is planning on, already allocating land out there for more factories. They're trying to buy out for more housing.
Yep.
So although right now we may have less concentration of calls down there, we know that by the end of next decade, we should have a significantly larger number of calls.
I don't think it'll take that long.
I think
I'm
5
being
years.
very conservative.
Yeah, I'm guessing 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's more like it.
And to the issue about North, Battleground has their second station within a mile
Yes.
of all that building up there, and then West Lafayette Station 3 is like 50 at 600, or about 3.5 miles away. And with the automatic mutual aid, which we're still hammering out, we're getting closer.
Okay.
But that will alleviate the problem there.
Yeah.
I don't foresee a need for us to build another station.
Okay.
Not in my lifetime, anyway. Now that's a couple years ago.
You still got about 45, that's fine.
I've got a similar but slightly different question. What percentage of calls, like roughly, do we send out not fully staffed today? Because that's the primary thing we're trying to fix here, right? Is we're not sending out fully staffed trucks. We want to try to fill that gap. How much do you think 9 does to get you there?
9 will get us setting out our first truck fully staffed with a minimum of 3.
Yeah.
And that's what the career departments around here have. I mean, 4 is actually the NFPA standard is 5 on an engine and 6 on an aerial apparatus. But what we operate with is 3, and that should be no problem getting our first engine out with 3 people.
We usually, I think it's fair to say that probably more than half the time you leave with less than 3 people in a car or a truck.
On a fire, we try to get 3.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect world.
Yeah.
We try to.
On a fire alarm, it'll be with less than, if we know we have a working structure fire, that truck, probably 90% of the time will leave with 3 people on it unless they hear that there are people going direct that have their gear with them. And then they will leave knowing that there'll be something to do.
So usually speaking, from what I've also seen, and you can correct me if it's not a correct characterization, but oftentimes we'll just wait a minute or 2 longer too.
Yeah. What it does is delay the response time somewhat.
In a minute or 2, that's life and death.
Yeah.
But if it comes, if the call comes out, smoke or fire showing, we call
go
the West Lafayette right away. Make do
The
with
standard for number of personnel on a structure fire that is actual structure fire is a minimum of 15.
Yeah.
West Lafayette has 15 people on duty if they have a structure fire, so they have to empty their whole department to get that. And on a day like today, it would take probably 30 because of the heat and everything to cycle people in and out.
This is, if I interject something here, Mr. Chair. Is there any move by the APC to start a strategic plan?
They did actually, so they are gonna do a strategic plan for Wabash Township unincorporated
Right.
and Tippecanoe Township unincorporated.
When?
I haven't heard a date yet, but
So,
they reached out this week about it. So
They told me that a year and a half ago.
I think that I am
Again, it's the
cautiously optimistic that we'll see the beginning of this by the fall. But again, it is on Helm being cautiously optimistic. I think that we're getting very close to the beginning.
Because that's going to have an impact upon projections.
All of that, yeah.
But they see that, I'm sure, Jim, you see stuff all the time, but I don't know if you see it in a manner in which I guess I would like to see it, to say, Are we doing everything we possibly can as a township government to provide the services we are obligated to do?
Yeah.
Not including just fire, but assistance and all those other things that
Yeah.
we look at doing, and impact on transportation, schools, safety.
Yeah.
I would say they are probably maybe 3 months away from building houses on the south side of 600 North. I drove in back there today to check the hydrant position because they don't have the roads in yet, but there is. The sewers are there. Yeah, they're gonna start pouring curbs.
How many units is that one? Is that 500?
That's 574, I think, total. I think they're going to have probably close to 100 lots available with this.
With what has been developed out there, Burnett's Creek and this and the other ones, in between that has been added, and let's say summer of 2023, what would be your rough estimate of new structures being built, and homes being built?
Next year?
2,000 plus?
There's gonna be a 7-unit apartment complex built on Paramount. There's the townhomes are gonna go in down here at Cumberland and Klondike.
Yep.
There's plans for a 4-story apartment building behind Wings, et cetera. And I'd say that probably by next year, there would be 3 meadows. And with that new one up there, I'd say you're gonna probably see another probably 200 to 300 houses.
Just for that are ready to occupy in the next year.
By the end of 23, yeah.
And with what has gone out at Burnett's Creek, that whole addition out there, how many homes are out there that would fall in Wabash?
Well, everything on the south side of 600, basically, from where the jog and the road used to be, is Wabash Township. And that one subdivision there that they're working on, they're starting phase 1, it's got 574 lots.
And now I see across the road, they're adding.
Across the road is I was surprised at how many they got built up there, but that's typical township.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we cover south side of 600 and they have the north side of 600 until you get down to 140 west. And then 140 west, we cover both sides of it.
But again, you're already talking just within next year, just in the next year, those 300 units will add another, it's usually about 2.8 or 2.9 people per unit on average here in the township. So you're talking adding close to another 900 people in population. So we're seeing that in of itself is a 4 or 5% bump. And so we're going to if we keep seeing it at that rate over the next decade, you're going to see about 30 to 40%.
The census projections for the township show a 10% increase over the next decade. I think that's
Way
wildly
short.
under.
Yeah, that's
Way.
ridiculously under. And those things don't account, like it being a college town, it doesn't account for.
So,
a bunch of other
yeah,
stuff.
and so when you're saying 9 gets us to, most of the time, we're gonna be able to send it out fully staffed. We're also gonna be seeing increases in
Number of runs.
call volume
Yeah.
over time so like that's gonna last us some amount of time, but like eventually.
Yep.
We're gonna need to figure something out.
Yeah.
So
And I
Jim,
don't know
when
where
you
the
get an
money comes from.
alarm and it's a structure fire that is not a single story, do you automatically roll the area?
If it's a hydrated area.
Okay. And these new additions will have a hydrant.
All those will have hydrants.
So that would mean you would automatically roll the aerial.
Yeah.
And if we only have one guy here, do we wait a little bit or?
On the aerial?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would they send West Lafayette until they got there, or what would you do?
Oh, yeah. When it gets finalized, West Lafayette will make every fire run with us in a hydrated area pretty much. And vice versa, we will make on the north end of West Lafayette all of their fire runs there because we're close to the station.
I must compliment whoever rolled out here. This past week or so on, there was a incident on Morehouse just past Caliber. And I mean, you guys showed up. I was just coming down. There must have been 4 or 5 trucks there that were, it's very impressive.
We've had, and this is the season for fire. We had another one near the Tesla fire ground. We had one, so that was the Edison Street one. So we had a fire there. My understanding is that it was contained to the garage, which is very fortunate and quick response. So that was also a high wind day too. It was pretty windy. Anyway,
Sorry to get off topic, but
No, that's
no,
fine.
I think that all of this adds context to what these numbers are.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at is we're gonna need to make a decision on this soon.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money and we gotta,
Yeah.
I wanna, make sure that we're justifying it. I think it's easy to justify. And then my big question is gonna be, well, if it's not even gonna last us the decade, like, we gotta start thinking about what.
That's
we do
right.
Next.
Yep. And just a last thing here on this same subject, so that you guys, when you guys have this one, I'll make sure to. If you have any questions, obviously you can ask that outside of meeting too. But in that funding scenarios, at the bottom of it, we had the maximum levy, and then additional revenue streams, which is about $25,000 in additional revenue streams. What those additional revenue streams at the moment include is an estimate of how much we can get from Shelby Township based on the conversations we've had with Bill. They had usually actually been paying us only like $2,500 for the area we cover in Shelby Township, but with the creation of the fire territory, they're going to see an increase in how much they receive and how much they can pay for the services that they provide. Then we have about $16,000, which is the estimate for vehicle air drive excise tax, and then another $176 for the vehicle excise tax that we are expecting to see. We'll want to make sure, and I will work through with Miranda and Bill when budget comes around to double check that these numbers are still accurate as of what we're receiving right now, because those numbers are what you plug in, and so they've been plugged in and have been accurate in the past, but we want to make sure that we update them to be the most accurate that they can be. So generally speaking, you'll see an increase in those rather than a decrease. But, yeah.
Okay.
But it won't be that big either. It's a tiny portion.
So that was the framework. And I know next meeting is the big discussion around these budgets. So you wanted to talk about the outline of what that process looks like. So go for it.
So in the past, and David and the firefighters are my witness. What we wanted to see done was actually have a meeting where we actually went in and discussed the numbers for firefighting related funds. So that will be, obviously the big one is the 1111 fund.
Yes.
But we'll also touch upon some of the stuff regarding Cume Fire Fund and some of the ones that are related to like truck payments and stuff with the fire department. Those are more funds that are on autopilot. The one regarding like debt payment is basically an autopilot fund, in that we don't have to do a ton of work. It just depends on what debt we have. And then, but Cume Fire is also important because it allows us to, generally speaking, and that's the way it's currently set up too. And that's okay for flexibility's sake, but it's just a $300,000 thing in the line item, and it just has the entire fund in one line item. And I think that it would be beneficial for both us and the department and the public to have a more delineated numbers, or at least an idea of what we expect that we will need to spend from that funding in the next year, just so that we have an idea of what we're working with. You know, this year has seen a lot of necessary expenses from that fund. We've had to do equipment for, just workplace equipment, like, computers. We've had to do a lot of switches and PoEs and router equipment that we've had to buy to like upgrade the stuff at this station and then station 2. And obviously we'll see a significant expense in the roof. Well, not the roof, but the buildup of the upstairs. And in coming years, we'll see expenses for the roof and other pieces because our shingles don't stay.
I think that
Our shingles just
with the increase in the population growth.
Yeah.
The 3.33 cents or whatever it is for the King Cap fund will generate more than $300,000 per year.
That's true.
So with that little bit of income, we're looking good for the next year and a half, 2 years.
Oh, yeah, for expenses, yeah.
Okay.
We should be fine. Yeah, when it comes to like capital stuff.
There's only 1 year that I know of that we spent the complete Cume fire fund for a year, and that was when we bought 605.
Okay. Any anticipation on new equipment similar to that coming up the next year or two?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay,
we're gonna start specifying a new engine to replace 606.
okay.
we're hoping that we can cut down some of the expenses with some of the sales of a couple of different apparatuses that are either underused or.
Yeah, we were gonna sell the wide truck, right?
Yes.
I can't remember what you guys call that one. But
The mini pumper. 605. There's another one that we're planning on selling. What's the other number?
606.
606.
Yeah. We may have a buyer for it. Somebody wants to pay us $70,000-$80,000 for 606 and need it right away, we will probably go ahead and sell it.
Yeah.
Because of it doesn't get that much use at this time.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be without it for a long period of time. That's why we're going ahead and start the spec on the new 602. Plus, I think that Bill Jones may have some ideas about financing for that would be beneficial for us to get it sooner than later.
There's some, and I know that, I think that that's the same one you would be mentioning. There's some programs to the state that right now have lower interest rates than
I
we
think
would
we
be.
can get 1.67%.
Okay, yeah, because that's about to get very bad.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
And right now, you're still in a seller's market for getting rid of the old engine as well, which
Yeah.
may change.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So yeah, so this is kind of the outline of that piece. So that'll be what we hope to cover in the July meeting. And then during the August meeting, we'll cover township assistance and general fund, which are smaller pieces. So that's also part of the reason why I wanted to give us more of a head start with the fire piece, because obviously that's the biggest part of our budget. And so August, we'll have like some presentation of our ideas, a budget framework for those places. And then come September, we'll do the official budget proposal to present to you guys for your consideration. But we're going to start, but we're going to be doing the work ahead of time. In that sense, it's just, that's the official,
We'll have covered all of it, and then we'll just.
Yeah, and we can make some changes and tweaks, and that's part of the relationship that I've always envisioned between the trustee and the board, which is, you got to work together and collaboratively on some of these issues. And then, it doesn't mean that you guys still don't have a say, right, on the budget, I want to make sure that when we're going through this, we address those concerns on the front end rather than have to deal with them with a couple of days left to the deadline of approving a budget. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. If you guys have any concerns or anything that you would like to change, but that would be my proposal. Do these.
So for the July 21st meeting, any type of budget discussion, any changes in what you've talked about here, can we get that at least a week before the meeting instead of?
Yeah. And I'll make sure I'll have most of it done by the end of the month, because that's when we have the budget worksheet anyway.
Excellent.
To present to
Excellent.
DLGF.
And we haven't seen any of the general fund and township assistance stuff yet.
Yeah,
This is all just
yeah.
firefighting.
That's all firefighting.
Yeah.
And so I'll make sure to get you that. And then obviously there will still be some other stuff that comes in between those meetings, but I want to give the timeline as to what we're doing with the budget side of the meetings. So.
Excellent.
Excellent. All right. So yeah, that's July 21st. We'll be talking about the firefighting budget discussion. We will have a discussion on general fund and township assistance on August 18th. Just something you wanted to add real quick?
Yeah, I realized that that would have been a typo. It's July 19th.
July 19th.
July 19th?
Yeah, and I'll
June
correct
21st,
that.
July 19th. Got it.
I made that mistake on there, so I apologize.
Any announcements before we adjourn?
I think we got it.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting called adjourned at 7:56. Thank you.
Just under an hour. All right, let me